Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Hey, it's Stan in Gainesville, hot Florida, and today we're going to discuss lighting fantasies, LinkedIn, getting started with AI, and Apple Intelligence, all on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
Bottled the original brewery, Stan, Steve, and David. No unadulterated any other ingredients.
No yeast.
No additional carbonation.
No additional carbonation added. It's just the pure brew. The Pure Brew Brothers.
The Brew Brothers. Okay, there we go. Welcome, everyone, to episode 376.
Steve just had a swag, didn't he?
Hey, speaking of swag, I see you broke your one, not ready for dishwasher.
Oh, my
Light
God.
Talk.
I'm so depressed about that.
We're going to have to order some more mugs, you know.
I am really depressed about that. So they may not be dishwasher safe, but they're not Lumen Brothers stand safe.
Definitely
either.
not stand safe.
Cleaning up his office and disorganizing. I'm turning the office into like a emeritus professor cave and getting rid of stuff.
And you got rid of our mug?
I didn't mean to. My shoulder hit it and it went down. I will say it broke. The one side of it stayed pretty good, but the rest of it was like a gajillion pieces. And do we have any spares?
We have to buy them. We don't have any spares. They're gone.
Oh, man, it really was a rare thing
it's a
then,
limited
wasn't it?
edition.
I think before we ship anything to Stan, we need to keep our eyes open on eBay. He might be blowing smoke here, and he realizes what a collector's item it is.
I'm calling Bupkis on that one.
I've seen them going for $7.
Whoa. I may sell mine.
I think they're bidding on eBay.
Okay.
Could I sell my broken one?
So anyway, we should tell our listeners that if they haven't listened to last week's episode, an interview with David Bengali, they should, because that was really a great, great show. And we should thank our brothers, sisters, Zach and Ellen. And who else was on that show?
Me.
And right. And Steve, you were on that show.
I just sat there in silence. He was such a great speaker.
He was. It was very entertaining and very, very knowledgeable and a lot of really good advice. So for our listeners, if you haven't checked out episode, what was that, 375? Yeah, with David, and very interesting career this guy has. And he's got, oh, by the way, I love his photo. I mean, the photo he uses for this program stuff, we posted it. A lot of cool looking cat this guy is. So David, thank you again for being on the show.
A little known fact about David, he has never broken one of our mugs.
That's true. That's because we don't have any to send him. He doesn't have one. Well, anyway, let's get started. And believe it or not, I have our first question. And it's from Esmeralda from Barcelona, Spain. And Esmeralda asks, all I've been hearing about lately is AI, AI, AI. Or is she saying, I? No, it's AI. With Apple announcing their new operating systems incorporating AI, or artificial intelligence, how can I start using this technology in my stage designs? Well, this is a really timely question because Ellen and Live Design Online have just released this wonderful online video tutorial that features our great friend Bob Boniol about AI and creating generative art. And I watched it. It is fabulous. It's like 2.5 hours long. But the reason why it's so long is because he actually goes through multiple AI art generators and shows you step by step how to sign on to them, how to get a subscription, and exactly how to do prompts. It's just really, really fabulous. So the first thing I say to Esmeralda is, first, watch this tutorial, and we're going to post the link. It's a long link. You could probably go on the Live Design Online website. You could probably get there through that, but we're going to post it on the Light Talk Facebook page so that all of our listeners can just link onto that and watch it. It really, really is terrific. And the first thing I did when I started getting into AI was I went ahead and I got a Midjourney subscription. And Bob tells you exactly how to get into Midjourney. That is really the first thing to do. And it's not that expensive. They have several tiers of membership. One's as low as $10. That's like for beginners. And then there's like a professional one for $30. And we're talking about monthly. And the nice thing about Midjourney is that if you're doing a show, you could just subscribe for 1 month and then wait for the next show and then subscribe again. So you're not paying $30 a month all the time and you're not using it. So that's a good thing about a subscription. Also, a lot of Adobe's suite programs have incorporated AI into their programs. So in Photoshop, there's a really cool generate tool that if you do a selection on an object, there's a little box that comes up that says generate. You could say, 17th century farmhouse from Scandinavia. And all of a sudden, boom, they get a bunch of different images of this farmhouse. And it will integrate it into the image that you're working on, which is also pretty cool. The other programs, Final Cut Pro, which is an Apple program, uses AI into their video program. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about later on about the new Apple Intelligence, or AI being Apple Intelligence, right? And it's going to be in all their new operating systems that are coming up and going to be downloaded in the next few months, toward the end of this year in the fall, they say. And that's going to be fabulous. And if you haven't seen the press release on that, we're going to talk more about that later. It's pretty impressive, the upgrade and the operating systems of Macs, iPads, and iPhones. Other tools that Bob covers are ChatGPT and an offshoot of that, DALL-E. And that is really fabulous. And something I didn't know about DALL-E is that DALL-E is much more conversational than Midjourney. Because Midjourney, you have to do prompts in a certain way and a certain attitude. But with DALL-E, you can basically say, show me a farmhouse, and blah, 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 blah. Shows us, okay, now make that farmhouse red. Boom, it'll do it. That sort of thing, where in Midjourney, it's a little more tricky to make adjustments. So I'm going to be starting to use DALL-E a lot. There's a new program that OpenAI is beta testing now, and Bob actually showed it because he's one of the beta testers, but it's not out for public yet. It's called Sora. And this, according to Bob, is going to change everything. Because I saw it, I could not believe it. It's an amazing video creation tool. It's going to be available in a couple of months. He calls it a huge disruptor, and I totally agree. Another program is Runway. And then for video creation, Gen 2. Kubrick uses Unreal Engine. Stable Confusion. A lot of people, I said confusion. Stable Confusion, that's a good name for a band. It's Stable Diffusion is the actual name of the program. Stan is laughing for our listeners who can't see. So yeah, there's a lot of things you could do. Also, on Facebook, there's a terrific users group for Midjourney. It's called the Midjourney Official Group. There are a lot of Midjourney groups. Get on that because that's the one that Bob is actually one of the moderators for. And that's a total legit group. And you get to learn more about AI. And then also on YouTube, there's a channel called Olivio Sarikas. And Olivio Sarikas, that's a major AI visual artist type of group. So how do you start? You jump in. You jump into the deep end and go, baby. That's how I would do it. Stan, you've been saying, for years about AI. You've been warning us, saying, I'm telling you guys, this is the future. We were saying, ha, 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 never. But we are wrong. I'm going to prove myself wrong. I did not believe that they would get this far, this fast. So, Stan, do you have any advice for Esmeralda?
Well, I can't resist the opportunity to rub your face in it. But I would direct our listeners to go back to the show where I first raised my initial excitement, with some skepticism, but mostly excitement about what was coming, particularly around ChatGPT. And these guys would just... all you had for me were eye rolls, and it can never do what a human will do. And and it's great to hear you, David, be so excited about it. I think you could definitely converted for sure. I watched a little bit of the webinar today. I kind of got through it. I think to answer the question, read the question again, if you would.
Oh, well, she just wants to know how to get started for stage design.
So I'm going to credit, this is not my wisdom. This is David Brooks, who I like to read. David is a collector of wisdom, that collects wisdom and crystallizes it, and then puts it out for the public in his essays. And in the early days around it, about when David is talking about, when I was sort of saying, hey, this is really going to be something, and I've invested in it too, by the way. I'm hoping that I picked the right ponies. But David Brooks made a very interesting observation. He said, it's really going to be less about how it's going to impact the humans, us. It's going to be less about what the technology and the machine learning and the large language models can do. That is going to grow and become more sophisticated. But what's where the real growth is going to have to happen is in us, because it's about the prompt. It's about the request that the human input puts in. So we're going to have to, and his point was that we, humanity, because the thing can do anything in ways that anything couldn't have been done before in human history, sort of like a printing press moment, we're the ones that are going to have to adapt. And how well you think about the prompt, how you refine your prompts. So it's sort of like, okay, man has invented the wheel. Now, what are you going to do with the wheel? And so if we think historically what the wheel has done to humanity, so this is like a wheel moment. Maybe that's hyperbole or not, but if we say, okay, this is like a printing press or the wheel moment, it's really going to be about us, the evolution of us, and how we get better at the prompting. And so that's what I would say, start to still refine your own thought process like it always, that's not going to go away. But the results are going to be quicker and perhaps better.
And the prompting is getting easier. I mean, the prompting that's the part of the tool that you are inputting. That's the designing part. Turn this costume purple, turn this, have the lights come in from stage left, that sort of thing.
So look, let me give an example. I wanted to test it. I had to do a layout of some house lights. It wasn't a paid project. It was a favor being asked. Here's the space. The space is so wide, by so long, by so high. I need to cover the area with this much light, and I'm going to use this fixture. How many do I need, and what should the spacing be? I could have done it myself, but I just went into ChatGPT and I said, this space is 30 feet wide by 22 feet deep. The ceiling height is 19 feet. And this is the fixture I'm using, and the lumen output is this. How many do I need for an even wash? And tell me the spacing. And within a nanosecond, I had the answer. And then I just drafted it up and sent it back. And it took me maybe 5 minutes, what might have taken me a half an hour if I had done it manually. So just I've had it write our estate plan. Okay, and then I've had it write stuff and then send it to my lawyer. I've been using it quite a bit.
We're going to be talking about this later, about how it's affecting our lives every day. But as far as getting started with it for a young designer, you know what I mean? Where do they go, to do it? Because I don't know how many schools are teaching this right now. I mean, Steve, are you guys teaching this?
We are trying mightily. The thing that I still roll my eyes over is that we're still in a world. I'm thinking about David last week and his comment about the mythology that one person is doing everything. Technology is moving fast. Everything there, yay, it's good. But there's still an obstacle in our way. And that obstacle, sadly, are directors who can't imagine what we're talking about, don't want to invest the time in it. So, you have this young kind of cutting edge 30-something director who gets it, but those are generally not the people who are in charge at universities. And so you're right, the word disruptive, I mean, all this stuff, Stan is right, about it is the moment that the printing press is coming out or the wheel is being made, and they can't imagine using it. They can't imagine what's happening. So we've got a generation of people who will move on, and we're waiting for a new generation. It's almost like the young generation of the Greek Empire appreciating Aeschylus and the older generation not. because his work was too controversial. And so, you look at his life and, he didn't win the contest very often. He was an outsider. But after he died and that young generation grew up and became the people of power, they went, yeah, this is the guy. He had it right 20 years ago. He was taking us to the promised land and no one wanted to follow. So it's interesting as a generation leaves the industry and the next generation comes up and what they're going to do with it and how they're going to communicate in a fluidity that David is talking about. The light needs to come through the window, make it morning light, make it a thunderstorm, make it midnight, and you can see what's happening. Change that to stage left. This is a world they haven't lived in before.
True. You asked if, David, if anybody's used it in schools. Steve's saying that they're using it mightily. We did it. When I was still teaching, we experimented with it. I set up a little competition. I had the students, I forget whatever play they were conceptualizing. It might have been West Side Story or something. And I said, guys, do your usual, typical, traditional visual research that you normally do. And then I want you to try DALL-E 2. And they had no idea what it was. I showed them where it was. I showed them how to get a free account. I got them started. And then when they brought the work in, I said, don't tell us which is which. And so we had a little guessing game, a little game show, kind of like, okay, which images do we think student A found in books or online or art books, and which images do you think were AI created? It was pretty clear at that time. Now, that's about a year ago or a year and a half ago, and seems like a long time in the AI world. And what we concluded then was that the AI images were more abstract, and by nature, because of the way they were prompting it, right? The words they were using, and the words that were more traditional research seemed more realistic. Now, West Side Story, it was somewhat realistic, but it's poetic, and you could be, and I thought, but it wasn't so much the AI as the way I think now in hindsight, that the way it was created, it was the quality of the prompting. And I think there's something on the evolution of us that we in the same way that, okay, you got a wheel, so okay, we ground wheat with the wheel maybe in the early, and then all of a sudden we have Teslas. Not all of a sudden, but millennia later, we're putting robots on other planets, and without a wheel, none of that would have happened. So I think there's an invention, creative part for us, but it's going to be different.
I think this is, when I say mightily, I mean struggling to keep up and just try to be aware of what's happening. I think this is, for universities, this is going to be the perfect Zoom class. I think the way this can get done is there can be a Bob who comes in weekly in a Zoom class.
I have one from Chris in North Carolina, and he wants to know, do you have a designed fantasy? Something you've always wanted to do, but you've not done. Tell us about your unfulfilled dream. Wow. Can I do that on the show? Is that all right?
Depends on the fantasy.
Does your fantasy lighting involve a lava lamp and a Holiday Inn?
Well, actually it does, Steve, because actually I'm going to make a joke with it. I'll explain. My fantasy is to be what Steve Woods was or did.
Good looking?
Good looking,
Have round glasses?
I want that mustache and that new hairdo. But the thing that I always wanted to do, and that I haven't gotten to do, and I maybe I'm going to get to do now on some small scale, I always wanted to be a rock and roll designer. I always wanted to do music, and it just never happened for me. And yet, and what prompted it is that, I don't know, there's this wonderful documentary that Lumen Sister Pam put on the TV last night. It's about Paul Simon and how and it's the documentary about the creation of the 7 Psalms, which is his last album, right? And he's facing death, and he went deaf, and he was losing his hearing, and I was just watching the creative process, and he's got all these musicians around him, and it's quite inspiring. I highly recommend it. And I don't even think we've gotten through all of it. And I thought, once upon a time, at Graceland, when he did that outreach to Africa to look for new sounds, he was touring and he was playing in Philadelphia. And a friend of mine and I went to see that tour. We saw Graceland. And I think it's very fuzzy memory because I don't know what I was smoking back then. But somehow I think I knew somebody on the tour or a friend of a friend. And we got to the arena and I walked up to the tech area and there was everybody. I think it might have been the first stop for Graceland was Philly. And it was going national. And I'm talking to the techs and the designers, who I don't know who it was, at the table. And they say, hey, you want to come out on tour? You can join us. And back in those days, something like that could happen. And I didn't go. But I always kind of wondered what would have happened had I gone. So my fantasy is to light rock and roll in some big arena with some music that I absolutely love. That's my fantasy. Unfulfilled fantasy.
You know, if you want to see some interesting rock and roll, and we'll test Lumen Brothers. David, do you know who the two designers were who worked for David Bowie and did Diamond Dogs?
I have no idea.
One of them is a friend of yours.
Oh, wow.
I have several friends in that industry.
The set designer was Ken Billington.
Okay.
Really?
And the lighting designer was Mark Ravitz.
Oh, yeah.
Take a look at that. Take a look at that. It's some really interesting work.
Wow. I'll definitely check that out. By the way, for people who have Max, which is HBO's channel, they released the David Byrne Stop Making Sense Talking Heads video, the new one that I raved about 6 months ago in 4K. And Stan, have you seen this yet?
This is on, what is it on?
It's on Max. It's on Max.
We've been having trouble getting into Max lately, but thank you for, we'll work on that.
You got to watch it. It is awesome. It's 4K. I mean, it looks like it was shot yesterday. It sounds fantastic. And of course, Wendell on doing projections and Beverly on lighting, and it looks stunning and it sounds incredible. So for everybody who has Max out there, make sure you watch that. That's great.
Okay, thank you for that.
So
thank you for that.
I have a very simple fantasy. I want to be Chris Kuroda. And it's done. No more. That's what I want right now.
So you want to do rock and roll too?
Yeah, and I would love to be Jeff Ravitz, right? I don't want to do. I've never wanted to do Broadway, so I'd look at the Broadway designers. I think you guys are great.
But you'd rather you would have liked to done rock and roll.
I would have done rock and roll. I would have done, but it has to be a big show. It would have to be like Mark Brickman, the stuff Mark Brickman gets. I want to be
that level.
Jeff Ravitz, Mark Brickman, or Chris Kuroda, right? So those cats, they did the shows. I think if I had to pick one, though, it would have probably been tough between Mark, because Mark did all the Pink Floyd and Genesis stuff, which I love, and Chris, who does all the Fish stuff, and Chris's stuff is mostly improv, right? Which I love.
Improv,
and he's playing the lights as they go. But Mark is so damn brilliant with the music. And the music,
so you and I are sharing a similar fantasy.
But
we
I'll
both want to be
specific. You're not being specific enough on what type of music. You're just saying rock music. I'm talking Pink Floyd.
No, I would say music that I love. Music that I love.
Lots of music. I mean,
that's true.
I like opera and I love opera, so that's cool. But I want to do those big stadium damn extravaganzas where you have a 80-foot mirror ball that opens up, and stuff like that, and explosions.
Yeah. I also wanted to do big urban. I have 3 books on my shelf that the guys from Space Cannon gave me. Remember Space Cannon?
Oh yeah. They were a big cannon.
Yeah, they would do these huge extravaganzas in like Prague and European cities and light up the buildings and the sky. That's another fantasy for me. That's pretty specific.
There you go.
What's Steve's fantasy? I want to hear Steve's fantasy. Because
I think if I had a rock and roll fantasy, I think I would want to go back in time and design for Annie Lennox. I just think the music and the voice is amazing.
That's a good one. Annie Lennox, yeah.
So maybe you've done rock and roll, though, Steve. That's not a fantasy for you.
Well, it's a fantasy working for an A-lister.
Exactly.
There's rock and roll.
There's
royalty. There's royalty.
That's true.
Well, I got this phone call from this guy here in little old Gainesville. They built a place called the Cotton Club Tom Petty hails from Gainesville, so there's quite a decent music scene here, which we don't really talk about too much on the show. And this Cotton Club Arts and Culture Center was built, and I think they contacted me in the early days about consulting, but they didn't have any money. I didn't do it, but I got this call, and the guy said, we got 36 moving lights in here, and nobody knows how to use them, and we have all these bands. Can we meet with you, or you have a student? I said, a student? What about me? So, because I'm free now, so I may get my hands dirty doing some music, right here in Gainesville in a small little cotton club, which I would just adore.
Cool.
And that's how to get started. I mean, you look at from our interview with Willie Williams or Ian Peacock. I mean, so many of these men and women, they started with that band when that band was a bar band.
Right.
That band before that band was famous and grew with them.
Same thing with Jim Lanahan and Tom Petty, who we should get on the show, actually.
I'm going to double down right now and upset people. I want to say that George Harrison saved Tom Petty's career
with Traveling Wilburys.
With Traveling Wilburys.
Okay.
Saved a lot of careers with the Traveling Wilburys, including his own.
Love that album, actually.
Awesome
Love it a lot.
Yeah, Bob Dylan.
Roy Orbison.
Roy Orbison.
I've
heard him for a long time. Yeah.
And who's the other guy? Steve, somebody.
Jeff Lynne, George Harrison.
If you look at the Traveling Wilburys, they made the first album is called Volume 1, I believe. And then their second album is called Volume 3. And when asked why he did that, he said, I just want to F with them a little bit so they can go out and look for Volume 2.
That's funny.
You are listening to The Light Talkers with the Lumen Brothers. And this week, Light Talk is sponsored by...
This is a public service announcement for the Save the Iguana Foundation. The iguana. For centuries, these innocent creatures have been misunderstood and misused by humans. First imported from South America to be used as props in bad Japanese monster movies, as well as for their skins to be fleeced and turned into tacky women's shoes, iguanas have been terrorized and slaughtered by humans. Among the thousands who were killed and harvested, a few lucky iguanas escaped, migrating south to the peaceful and humanly uninhabitable swamps of Florida. But as Floridians' skin evolved into a blend of copper tone and scorched leather, iguanas learned to live with their scary human neighbors. But like most things that human beings touch, this coexistence has brought about horribly unfortunate consequences. As reported in the Boca del Vista Phase 2 community newsletter, a tragic event occurred last month when one of its elderly residents purchased a baby iguana for his grandson. After a few weeks, a tragedy occurred. Many people are not aware that iguanas sometimes enter a state of hypnotic paralysis while they're sunning themselves on the seawall. Mistaking this paralysis for death, this boneheaded resident took the iguana into the bathroom and flushed it down the toilet. Unfortunately, the poor iguana's body jammed the sewer system of the entire complex, resulting in the forced shutdown of the community pool and jacuzzi due to the backflow of hundreds of gallons of digested Metamucil sewer waste released into these facilities. For months, a toxic cloud of human funk hung in the air above the condo community, forcing its residents to flee to their children's homes. This resulted in thousands of dollars of damage to the sewer system and an expensive hazmat team intervention, all resulting in a dramatic $500 hike in Boca del Vista Phase 2's monthly condo fees. Iguanas were not put on this earth to become pets or playthings, especially for small children. The only suitable place for iguanas are in the wild. So please remember to be kind to these harmless, misunderstood creatures. Iguanas have been on the earth for eons before humans evolved from the scum. It's time for us to love and respect these gentle creatures. So please send your kind donations to Save the Iguanas Foundation, care of the Cheap Commerce Division, Light Talk Central, 200 Alligator Way, Gainesville, Florida. Please allow these beautiful creatures to live their lives in peace, unafraid to be abused by the yahoos who live in the state of Florida.
It's all tax deductible too, right?
It's all tax deductible.
We are a 5013C.
We have some good news, though. We have some good news because due to this Stan has released our iguanas back to the swamps. Right, Stan?
Born free as the wind blows, as free as the grass grows. The iguanas are free once again.
In fact, one of our iguanas migrated all the way across the country out here to Long Beach and is currently flying over the beach right now. And I posted that video on our Light Talk Facebook
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And we have one living in Utah with
That's
one of
right.
our...
3 little known facts about the iguana. Number 1, it is referred to as the chicken of the tree. Just want to point that out.
Chicken of the tree.
Fact number 2, and I'm sure Stan can attest to this. Floridians love to eat iguanas and iguana eggs at Easter time.
Yes, we have them at Thanksgiving,
Are you
too.
serious?
And fact number 3, unlike the immigrants to Florida, the native alligator will not eat an iguana unless it's starving. And as a bonus, now that Stan's retired, he can make, not making this up, he can move to Dade County, and the city will pay him upwards of $50,000 a year to be an iguana hunter.
What? No, that's totally against what we believe in. We don't want to hunt these poor creatures.
I think the iguanas are a pest in Florida, but I can't imagine. I can't
How can they be a
imagine
pest?
boiling myself a reptile
They're
egg.
lovely creatures.
No, we're going to convert the backyard to an iguana shelter.
Okay.
Well, it'll certainly keep the alligators away.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Well, the sound of those lonely monkeys and depressed ducks completely destroying Stan's swag shop means it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about Back to AI, Apple's WWDC 24 announcement of iOS 18.
Do you think this makes Apple cool again?
Makes me rich again.
Again? You're rich once and now you're rich again?
So Apple is now capitalized, just for those of you who follow the markets, Apple is now capitalized every day at $3.176 trillion. And today the stock on the news of Apple Intelligence rose $7.26%, or $14, breaking through its resistance level of $200. If Apple does not fall back under $200 a share in the next 3 days, it's going to keep going up, which means the market likes what Apple has done.
Well, let's
Sell.
explain to our listeners
Sell.
what Apple has done. Okay? Because a lot of people don't
I gave
know
you
this.
the segue.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It was a really good setup. So the big news this week actually came out, I believe, yesterday, was Apple's new announcement about their new operating systems, including iOS 18 for the iPad and the iPhone, and of course, Mac OS Sequoia, which is going to be for the Mac, obviously. And all of these operating systems are going to be heavily introducing artificial intelligence into their controls of everything, basically, from Siri on through their organizational apps, things like that. And it's funny because Apple's rebranded AI to Apple Intelligence. Not artificial intelligence, but Apple Intelligence. Isn't that cute? Anyway, they're going to have generative AI models that interact with the data to prioritize email as well as for notifications, messages, and events. This will help compose messages with proper grammar and a chosen style. They are actually integrating ChatGPT into it so that it makes everyone sound like they know what the hell they're talking about, or at least their grammar would be correct. Phone calls can be recorded and a summary of important points would be delivered to the user. So that would be kind of cool. They have something called the Image Playground, which basically allows you to draw rough sketches, which are automatically transformed into refined images using your distinctive style, which is kind of cool. Unfortunately, my distinctive style is rough sketches, so not much you can get from that. They have an image wand, and that will create an image from your textual description. So you can describe something, and this image is automatically created, very similar to the AI programs we were talking about before. Like I said, ChatGPT is integrated and free. Apple Writing Tools is integrated into ChatGPT. They'll have privacy protections that are built in for users who access ChatGPT. Their IP addresses are obscured, and OpenAI won't restore requests. ChatGPT's data use policies apply for those users who choose to connect to their account. There's a total makeover for Siri, much more intelligent and interactive, and privacy. Again, most of the AI computations are on the device only. If cloud support is needed, then you have a private cloud, and they're bringing in outside people to inspect this to make sure that there's no privacy issues. One of the really cool things is that all the Apple apps are going to be linked through AI, so that, let's say you're going to be trying to figure out when a production meeting was going to happen, and someone says, okay, that production meeting's at 12 p.m. on Tuesday. The AI engine will actually check all your appointments, any type of things that you may be already committed to, and warn you of that. We'll let you schedule it, or we'll schedule it with a warning, which is something I need because I have a way of overbooking myself and double booking myself. So this is a great thing for me, let me tell you. I think it's really kind of cool. If they can pull this off, I think it's really going to be a major game changer in how we live our lives and how we deal with our devices. So what do you guys think?
Well, I'd like to give a little insight into the business side of it because I read about that. So we shouldn't give too much credit to Apple or overdo it because they're actually late to the game. So they inked an agreement with Sam Altman at OpenAI, which built the large language model that most everything else is based on. So they're going to get services from OpenAI. Now, OpenAI is still a privately held company. And so that's interesting. The other piece is that actually iPhone sales are lagging. So they need a way to do something. And this is it. And to your point about the privacy, if you listen to the CEO of Microsoft's already done that. So they're sort of like, they haven't innovated. They've sort of jumped on the bandwagon, but that doesn't mean they won't do it really well. Of course they will. And we all love our Apple devices. I wanted to mention that Facebook, if you haven't noticed, when you open Facebook in the little magnifying glass, which is the search element, and I haven't tested it yet, it has a different appearance. And that's because the search magnifying glass in Facebook is now an AI bot. And it says, ask me anything. So like I said about a year and a half ago, you're going to see it everywhere, and you're starting to see it everywhere. Apple employing this, I think, is going to, yes, it's a whole new world. It's kind of exciting to be alive, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes, I like being alive. So,
well, Steve has our last question of the day.
And it comes from Holly in California, and she writes, in getting a job, should I be pounding the sidewalk or posting on social media? I use LinkedIn and Facebook. Well, I don't know about pounding the sidewalk. We're talking about emerging technology, everything that's out there, things you can do. I don't know if pounding the sidewalk is still the way to do it. I'm not a big fan of LinkedIn or Facebook on any level. Getting a job, you're in California. Send a resume to every theater in the state of California, and while you're at it, go ahead and send resumes up to Washington, Oregon, Nevada, and Arizona. Just circle out your territory and go for it. I think there's a new way of communicating. I mean, there's nothing wrong with knocking on doors, and that helps. But the question is, how can you be more efficient and reach more people? I mean, in the old days of 5 or 6 years ago, people said, have yourself a presence on Twitter and put everything up that you're doing. Let the whole world know what's going on.
In the circles that I'm traveling, among the young folk, they seem to use more than anything else Instagram because it's image-based. And people see. So when I post on Facebook, I click the button that automatically puts it on Instagram, and I don't ever look at my Instagram, But if I did, I think there's stuff there because it's linked. It's a Facebook-owned site. But the young folks seem to. There are people who follow different artists. They follow different designers. So that might be one for Holly to look at is Instagram.
I've always thought of Facebook more as a social platform.
Yeah, Facebook. But I'm talking about Instagram.
Right. I'm agreeing with you. I've always, when you say when she says I'm posting on Facebook,
Yeah.
I don't know if it always shows you in your best light because your friends are posting photographs of you drunk and unconscious on a sofa, and they've painted apples on your face. So I'm not sure about. And you just look at Facebook. Yeah, it's interesting. Facebook is 15 minutes ago.
I thought that when LinkedIn first came, because you asked about LinkedIn, and when LinkedIn first came out, I got kind of excited. I thought, okay, this is great. This is a way that the computer and the AI and the algorithms will allow us to network more broadly, more nationally, globally. And I thought LinkedIn was going to be something cool. However, I have to say, it never really. For me, it never fulfilled the promise that I thought it had. I don't know about you guys. I have never gotten a job. I get wacky things like, I saw your LinkedIn page and I sell website services or whatever. I've never gotten a job or even an inquiry that had maybe some seriousness to it for any of the work that I do on LinkedIn. I'm curious about you guys. Any LinkedIn activity for you guys?
None for me. I don't use it. But then by the time when I came in, my career was already started, and I was way past the pounding the street stage. I got in the 80s, in the early 80s.
Well, I think the human connection is really important. That's what's so great about a resume, is people read down it and they see a director that they know. They see a theater that you've worked at that they know. If a potential employer can connect to you, Holly, as a human being, and you have shared experiences, you both worked at Disney when you were, young and hungry. That's what you're trying to find is how do they, there's a lot of lighting designers in the world. There's a lot of good lighting designers in the world. How do you stand out from that? And it's the human connection that does it.
And if that human connection can happen through social media, fine. But cold calls, it's hard to turn something. It's hard to just mine something out of the ground, if you will, to just go prospecting and assume you're going to hit some gold.
Well, if you don't get out of your damn house or your damn basement and meet real people and get your ass down to like a bar where people hang out for the theater and be a volunteer in the community theater so you can meet people.
Right.
You're not going anywhere in this business.
David said it a million times. It's the socialization aspect.
It's getting out.
But
I don't think LinkedIn, I don't think Facebook, all that stuff is not going to do it. No, they're not going to care. You're going to need to get out there and help and show them that you know what the hell you're doing and that you're smart and you're not a jerk, and you go out there and people all of a sudden, they want to use you. I'm just telling you, this is how I pick assistants. They call me up out of the blue or they email me and they basically say, hey, I hear you're doing a show here. Can I come and watch you? Absolutely. And then you come and then you don't make yourself a pest and you make yourself useful. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, this person's smart. They're nice people and they're very competent. If they're not competent, you don't deserve the work.
It's funny. One of my friends years ago went to the shape-ups at the IA and then would follow up and go to where shows were loading in and simply knock on the door. And she was kind of adopted back in the day by the Sullivan family, who were serious electricians in New York. And they let her watch. Can I see what a Broadway light plot looks like? Can I watch you work? Can I see how you organize your day? And they kind of took her under their wing and introduced her to people. I think the students are unaware of that.
Oh, we tell them all the time.
That actually, when someone takes an interest in you, you follow up. And, you don't think, they're just blowing smoke, because they don't have time to do that.
Okay, well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tell us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk Insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you wanted to litigate us on Facebook or anyplace else, don't worry. The Snoot Group with the legal team of Sparks, Burnout, and Chase will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Gainesville, Long Beach, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable and unquestionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.